The Thanksgiving table is loaded with golden turkey, creamy mashed potatoes, and pies that smell like heaven. Laughter bounces around the room, but then my daughter-in-law stands up, eyes locked on me like daggers. "You're worthless," she says, voice cutting through the air like ice. "You've done nothing for us. Just stay out of our lives." The words hang there, heavy and cruel, turning joy into shock. My heart drops, a mix of hurt and fire igniting inside. But I stay calm on the outside, because some storms brew quietly. If you love stories packed with family twists, quiet revenge, and lessons that stick, smash that subscribe button now, turn on the bell, and let's jump into this wild ride. You won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Margaret, and at 50, I've learned that silence can be louder than shouts. People see me as the quiet type, the one who smiles softly, brings homemade treats to every gathering, and never boasts about her life. But behind that, I'm a board member at a major tech company in the city, not the spotlight-grabbing kind. I sit in those long meetings, poring over reports, ensuring everything runs fair and square. My late husband always said I had a gift for influence without the noise. After he passed 10 years ago, I threw myself into that world, using my position to lift others up, especially my family. It gave me purpose, a way to turn grief into something good. When my son David married Jessica 5 years back, my heart swelled with pure joy. She was sharp, driven, racing up the ladder in marketing at her firm. I admired her fire and wanted to fan it, so without fanfare, I did. I connected her with key people in the industry, shared tips on nailing big pitches when she confided in me over coffee. Once, I even whispered her name to a friend on the executive team for a promotion she was chasing. She landed it, and oh, the glow on her face that day. She hugged me tight, whispering, "Margaret, you're a lifesaver." Those moments filled me with warmth, like I was part of their success story. But as time ticked on, the gratitude faded. Jessica started treating her wins like they were all hers, no mention of the quiet boosts I'd given her. I'd show up at their place with a casserole or help with the down payment on their dream house. David begged me not to tell her, so I kept it secret, and she'd barely nod. Deep down, it stung, a sharp ache in my chest each time she dismissed my stories or rolled her eyes mid-sentence. I'd brush it off, telling myself she was just stressed from work, young and ambitious. Family meant everything to me. I'd swallow the hurt to keep the peace. That Thanksgiving was meant to be magical. David had invited the whole crew to their cozy new home, and I rose early, baking pies from scratch, apple with cinnamon spice, pumpkin smooth as silk, pecan crunchy and sweet, just like my mommy's too. The kitchen filled with that comforting aroma, easing the loneliness that sometimes crept in. I carried them over, arms full, heart hopeful. Jessica answered the door, glanced at the pies, and muttered, "Oh, more food? We're already overflowing." No smile, no thanks. It felt like a small slap, but I pushed it down, forcing a grin as I set them on the counter. We all gathered around the table, the room alive with chatter and clinking glasses, the turkey carved perfectly, steam rising, making my mouth water. For a moment, everything felt right. My son laughing, relatives sharing old tales. Then Jessica stood for a toast, glass raised high. Her eyes met mine, and something dark flickered there. "Let's be honest," she said, her tone sharp and unforgiving. "Some folks here think they're so vital, but Margaret, you've been freeloading on this family for years. You're worthless, you bring nothing, so do us a favor, stay out of our lives from now on." The words slammed into me like a wave, crashing over my soul. Worthless. The room froze. Forks hovered midair. David's face flushed deep red, his eyes darting between us, but he stayed silent, like he was paralyzed. My chest tightened, a burning pain spreading as tears pricked my eyes. Humiliation washed over me, hot and suffocating in front of everyone I loved. I wanted to scream back, to spill every secret act of kindness I'd done for her. But no, I locked it all in, nodding once with a steady gaze. "Excuse me," I whispered, voice barely trembling. I rose slowly, grabbed my coat from the hook, and slipped out the door into the chilly night. Driving home, alone in the dark, those cruel words echoed in my mind, twisting like knives. Tears finally fell, hot on my cheeks, mixing with a deep sorrow I'd buried for too long. But beneath the pain, a quiet resolve stirred, a calm strength rising from years of being overlooked. I pulled over once, gripping the wheel, breathing through the ache. Then I straightened up, wiped my face, and kept going. That night, sleep evaded me. I sat in my dim living room, a forgotten cup of tea cooling beside me, replaying the scene. The betrayal burned, but so did the memories of all I'd sacrificed, my time, my connections, my love. Enough was enough. As dawn crept in on Black Friday, while the world buzzed with sales and leftovers, I picked up my phone. One quiet call. That's all it would take. The next morning came too soon. Gray light slipping through my curtains like it was ashamed to show itself. I hadn't slept. Not really. My eyes were puffy, my heart still raw from the night before. Every time I closed them, I saw Jessica's face, heard that single word again. Worthless. It felt like a bruise deep inside my ribs that wouldn't stop throbbing. I made coffee the way I always do, black, no sugar, strong enough to wake the dead. My hands were steady now, though. The crying was done. What was left was something colder, clearer. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in front of me, staring at the screen for a long minute. Then I scrolled to a number I hadn't dialed in almost 2 years. His name was Richard, CEO of the company where Jessica worked. We'd known each other since the early days, back when the firm was small, when we'd sit in conference rooms arguing over budgets until midnight, laughing about bad coffee and worse haircuts. He trusted me. More than that, he owed me. Not in a loud way, in the quiet way that matters most in boardrooms. I'd voted to keep him when others wanted him gone. I'd warned him about 2 toxic VPs before anyone else saw the red flags. I never asked for credit, he never forgot. The phone rang twice. "Margaret?" His voice came through, warm, surprised, a little worried. "Everything okay? It's early." I took one slow breath. "Richard, I need a favor. Not for me, for the company." Silence on his end. Then, "Tell me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I spoke like I was reading from a report. "Jessica Carter, marketing director, your team, I want you to look, quietly, at the last 3 vendor contracts she signed, the ones with Blue Horizon Creative. Check the invoices against the actual deliverables. Check the timestamps on the emails. Check who approved the rush payments. And, Richard, check if any of those vendor emails trace back to an account she personally controls." Another long pause. "You're serious. Dead serious." He exhaled hard. "Margaret, this is heavy. If what you're saying..." "I'm not saying anything yet. I'm asking you to look, that's all. You'll know what you see." He didn't argue. "Give me 2 hours." I hung up. My coffee was cold. I didn't care. The rest of the morning passed in slow motion. I folded laundry, watered the plants, dusted shelves I hadn't touched in months. Every task felt like breathing through a straw, small, deliberate, keeping the rage from boiling over. Because underneath the hurt was something sharper now, clarity. I kept picturing David's face at the table last night, the way he'd looked down at his plate instead of at me. My own son, the boy I raised alone after his father died young, the one I stayed up nights for when he had fevers, the one I drove to college with tears in my eyes, the one I helped buy his first house, and he'd said nothing, not one word to defend me. That hurt worse than Jessica's insult. Around noon, my phone buzzed. "Richard." "Margaret, you were right. It's bad, really bad. 3 contracts, over $180,000 in questionable payments, emails routed through a personal Gmail. One of the vendor owners is her cousin. She never disclosed the relationship. It's ethics violation, conflict of interest, potential fraud. The board will have to act fast." My stomach twisted, not with shock, but with a strange, heavy sadness. "What happens next?" I asked quietly. "HR and legal are already in motion. She'll be called in this afternoon, suspension pending investigation, then almost certainly termination. We can't let this stand, not with audit season coming." I closed my eyes. "Do what's right, Richard. That's all I ever ask." He hesitated. "You sure you don't want to tell me why? This feels personal." "It is personal, but it's also right." I ended the call. Then I sat on the couch, phone still warm in my hand, and for the first time since last night, I let myself feel the full weight of it. Not anger anymore, grief. For the daughter-in-law I once hoped would become family,
For the son who chose silence, for the years I gave quietly, thinking love was supposed to be invisible. My phone lit up again. A text from David. "Mom, I'm so sorry about last night. Jessica's upset. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. No tears this time, just one slow, steady breath. I typed 4 words. Not yet. Then I turned the phone face down, because the real storm wasn't over. It was just beginning, and the next blow would land at their Sunday brunch tomorrow, when Jessica's work email pinged in front of the whole family, the subject line cold and final. Termination, immediate effect.
Sunday brunch at David and Jessica's house was supposed to be the usual. Mimosas bubbling in tall glasses, fresh fruit on the table, soft jazz playing low in the background. The kind of lazy morning where everyone pretends the sharp edges from Thanksgiving have already smoothed over. I hadn't planned to go, not really, but David had called twice that morning, voice small and pleading, "Mom, please, we need to fix this. Jessica feels awful." I heard the lie in his tone. He was the one who felt awful, but I went anyway. Not to forgive, not to hug it out. I went because sometimes you have to see the fallout with your own eyes. I walked in carrying nothing, no pie, no smile, just my coat and a quiet calm that felt almost foreign to me. Jessica was in the kitchen, apron tied tight, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. She looked up when I entered, and for one split second her face flickered. Surprise, then something like guilt, then quickly back to that practiced brightness. "Margaret, you came. I'm really glad." Her voice was too high, too sweet. She stepped forward like she might hug me. I didn't move. David appeared from the hallway, eyes red-rimmed, hair messy like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said, almost a whisper. He looked at me like I might disappear if he blinked. I nodded once. "Let's eat." We sat. The table was beautiful, flowers in the center, plates stacked with golden pancakes, syrup in a little pitcher shaped like a beehive. Jessica kept talking, filling the silence with chatter about work drama, a new campaign she was leading, how busy things were. David kept glancing at me, then at her, saying almost nothing. Then her phone buzzed on the table, loud, sharp. She glanced at it casually, then froze. The screen lit up her face in cold blue light. I watched her eyes widen, watched the color drain from her cheeks. She picked it up slowly, like it might bite, tapped the screen, read, then read again. The room went quiet, except for the soft sizzle from the kitchen and the faint jazz still playing. Jessica's hand started to shake, just a little at first, then more. What is this?" she whispered. David leaned over. "Jess, what's wrong?" She didn't answer, she just stared at the email. I could see the subject line from where I sat, even upside down. From HR, corporate compliance, subject, termination, immediate effect. Effective date, today. Her breath hitched, a tiny broken sound, then louder. No, this can't be right." She scrolled frantically, fingers trembling. I knew what she was seeing. The investigation summary, the ethics violation flags, the conflict of interest disclosure she never filed, the payments traced to her cousin's company, the recommendation for immediate termination, and possible referral to legal for recovery of funds. David reached for the phone. "Let me see." She yanked it back. "Don't!" Her voice cracked. Tears spilled fast now, hot and sudden. She looked up at me, really looked at me, for the first time since Thanksgiving. Not with anger, not with pity, with raw, terrified understanding. You did this?" It wasn't a question, it was a plea. I met her eyes, steady, no smile, no anger, just truth. "I asked someone to look into something that should have been looked into a long time ago. What they found wasn't my doing, it was yours." Jessica's face crumpled. She dropped the phone. It clattered against the plate. Pancakes forgotten, mimosas untouched. David stared between us, piecing it together. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Mom, you?" I turned to him. My voice stayed soft, but it carried every year of quiet hurt I'd swallowed. "I helped her, David, for years. I opened doors, I gave advice, I even helped with the house, your house, without ever asking for a thank you. And she called me worthless, in front of you, in front of everyone, and you said nothing." His eyes filled. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I should have.
I said you should have, simply. No venom, just fact. Jessica sobbed now, shoulders shaking. I didn't mean it. I was angry, stressed. The pressure at work, I lashed out. I'm sorry. Margaret, please. I'll fix it. I'll call them. I'll explain. I shook my head slowly. Some things can't be explained away. She reached across the table, hand outstretched. Please, don't do this. I have bills. We have a mortgage. David's job isn't enough alone. Please. I looked at her hand, then at her face, red, swollen, desperate. For one heartbeat, I felt it, the old pull, the mother-in-law instinct to comfort, to forgive, to make it right. It ached in my chest like an old wound reopening, but I didn't take her hand. I didn't fire you, Jessica. Your choices did. David stood up suddenly, chair scraping loud. Mom, stop. This is too much. She messed up, okay? We all mess up. But ruining her career, that's not you. I looked at my son, my boy, and felt the deepest cut of all. It's exactly who I am, David. Someone who protects what's right, even when it hurts the people I love. Silence stretched long and heavy. Jessica buried her face in her hands, crying hard now. David sank back into his chair, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I stood up slowly, picked up my coat. I love you both, I said. I always will. But love doesn't mean letting someone walk over you and call it family. I walked to the door, paused, looked back. When you're ready to talk, really talk, without excuses, without blame, you know where I am. Then I left. The door clicked shut behind me, soft as a sigh. Outside, the air was crisp. The sun was trying to break through the clouds. I stood on their porch for a moment, breathing deep, feeling the weight lift just a little. Not gone, not yet, but lighter. Because words have weight, and so do consequences. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who finally decides enough is enough.
Months passed, like pages turning in a book I wasn't sure I wanted to finish reading. Winter came and went. Snow dusted the streets outside my small house, then melted into spring rain. I kept my routines simple. Morning coffee on the porch, board meetings where I still asked the hard questions, evenings with a book or an old movie. Quiet, steady, the way I'd always liked it. But the silence from David and Jessica wasn't quiet. It was loud in its absence. No calls, no texts after that one unanswered "not yet." No holiday cards, no just checking in, nothing. At first, the emptiness hurt fresh every day, like pressing on a bruise to see if it still ached. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, wondering if today would be the day. Then I'd set it down, remind myself why I'd drawn the line, and keep moving. By summer, the ache had dulled to something more manageable. Not gone, just quieter. I started smiling at small things again. The neighbor's dog who always barked hello, the way the light hit my kitchen window at dawn, the taste of fresh strawberries from the market. Then, one humid July evening, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door in my old cardigan and slippers, hair pulled back messy. There stood David, alone. He looked thinner, tired, eyes shadowed like he hadn't slept well in weeks. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for a storm. "Mom," he said, voice cracked on the first syllable. I didn't slam the door. I didn't invite him in right away either. I just stood there, hand on the frame, feeling every emotion crash together. Love, anger, relief, caution. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. I stepped aside. No words, just the door opening wider. He walked in slowly, like the house might bite, looked around at the same furniture, same photos on the mantle, him as a boy grinning with missing teeth, him at graduation, him and Jessica on their wedding day, both beaming like the world was theirs. He stopped at that last one, stared for a long time. I went to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of iced tea without asking if he wanted any, set them on the coffee table, sat on the couch, waited. He sat across from me, hands clasped tight between his knees. "I left her," he said. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples everywhere. I didn't gasp. I didn't say, "I'm sorry." I just listened. "She
After the firing, she unraveled, blamed everyone, blamed me for not defending her at Thanksgiving, blamed you for everything. She started drinking more, yelling, saying things she couldn't take back. I tried to fix it, I really did. Therapy, promises, but every time we fought, she'd bring up that day, how I'd stayed silent, how I'd let her call you worthless, and she'd say I was just like you, weak, invisible. His voice broke. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I couldn't keep living like that, not when every fight circled back to the one person who'd always been there for me, the one who never asked for credit, the one I let get hurt because I was scared of rocking the boat. He looked up at me then, really looked. I was wrong, Mom. I was so wrong. I should have stood up that night. I should have said something, anything. I should have protected you the way you've always protected me. And I didn't. I failed you. I failed us. Tears slipped down his face now, silent, steady. I don't expect forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I needed you to know I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. And I'm trying to be better. For me, for whatever comes next, but mostly for you. The room was quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the soft tick of the clock. I felt everything at once. The old hurt rising like a wave, the love that had never really left, the pride in seeing my son finally own his mistakes, the fear that words might not be enough this time. I reached across the space between us, took his hand. It was warm, trembling. David, I said quietly, love doesn't erase pain, but it can carry you through it. He squeezed my hand like a lifeline. I don't know if Jessica and I can fix things. I don't even know if I want to try anymore, but I know I can't lose you again. Not like that. I nodded slowly. Tears pricked my own eyes now, not from anger, but from something softer, something healing. You haven't lost me. You just had to find your way back. We sat like that for a long time, hands clasped, no rush, no fixing everything in one night. Eventually, he spoke again, voice steadier. Can I come by next weekend? Maybe bring coffee? Sit on the porch like we used to? I smiled, small, real, the first one in months that reached my eyes. I'd like that. He stood, hugged me, tight, long, like he was making up for every missed one. When he left, the house felt different, not empty anymore, just waiting for more conversations, more apologies, more healing. Because words have weight, but so does time, and sometimes the heaviest thing of all is choosing to start again.
Years slipped by like quiet seasons, each one layering a little more peace over the old wounds. Fall came again, leaves turning gold and red outside my window, the same way they had that fateful Thanksgiving. David and I had rebuilt something real. Slow porch coffees on Saturdays, long talks about everything and nothing, shared laughs over old photos. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. He just showed up, consistently, honestly. It meant more than any grand apology ever could. Jessica, she stayed a ghost in our conversations. David mentioned her only when necessary. Divorce papers signed 6 months after that brunch, shared custody of nothing since there were no kids, her moving to a smaller apartment downtown. He said she was working freelance now, piecing together gigs after the industry blacklisted her quietly. No big comeback, no dramatic turnaround, just life moving on without the spotlight she'd once chased. I didn't gloat. I didn't check her LinkedIn or ask for updates. The fire that had burned so hot that Black Friday had cooled into something else. Acceptance. Not forgiveness yet, not fully, but a kind of tired understanding that people can break things they can't always fix. Then, one crisp October afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Margaret? Her voice, smaller than I remembered, hesitant, raw. Jessica. My heart did a strange flip. Not anger, not joy, just surprise, mixed with a deep, aching recognition. I didn't hang up. It's me, she said quickly, like she was afraid I'd disappear. I know I don't deserve to call. I know I burned every bridge.
But David's been telling me bits and pieces, how you've been there for him, how you're healing, and I couldn't stop thinking, maybe I owe you more than silence. I sat down on the kitchen chair, hand tight on the phone. What do you want, Jessica? A long breath on her end. To say I'm sorry, not the quick, teary kind from brunch that day, a real one. I was wrong, cruel, selfish. I took every kindness you gave me, the connections, the advice, the quiet money for the house, and I threw it back in your face because I was scared. Scared of not being enough on my own, scared of needing help. So I pushed you away, hard, and I hurt the one person who never asked for anything in return. Her voice cracked. I lost everything after that email. Job, marriage, self-respect. For months I hated you. Then I hated myself. Therapy helped some, time helped more. But the thing that keeps me up at night isn't the firing, it's your face that night at the table. The way you looked when I said those words, like I'd stolen something from you that I can never give back. Tears burned my eyes now. Not from pain exactly, from the weight of hearing truth after so long. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve it, but I needed to say it, out loud, to you. I'm sorry, Margaret, for the insult, for the silence after, for pretending my success was mine alone when you helped build it. I'm just sorry. Silence stretched between us, not empty, full. I thought of the pies I'd baked that day, the way I'd left without a scene, the quiet call that changed everything, David's hugs, the slow rebuilding. And I realized something. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give because someone earns it. It's a choice you make when carrying the grudge gets too heavy. I hear you, I said softly, and I accept your apology, not because it's easy, but because holding on to hate was heavier than letting it go. A small, broken sob from her end. Thank you, that's more than I hoped for. We didn't talk long after that. No promises of coffee dates or holidays together, just a quiet goodbye, for now. Weeks later, David told me she'd asked if she could send a card, just a card, no pressure. I said yes. It arrived plain white, no frills. Inside, in her neat handwriting, Margaret, thank you for teaching me, quietly, what real strength looks like. I hope one day we can share a table again. No toasts, no drama, just family trying. With deepest respect and regret, Jessica. I placed it on the mantle, next to the wedding photo. Not hidden, not center stage, just there. That Christmas, David came over early. We baked pies together. Apple, pumpkin, pecan. The house smelled like memory and new beginnings. He looked at the card on the mantle, smiled small. She asked if she could drop off a pie. No staying, just leave it on the porch if you're not ready. I thought about it, felt the old ache, then the new lightness. Tell her to come in, for a minute, for pie, for whatever comes next. He hugged me tight. And when the doorbell rang later, when Jessica stepped inside, nervous, eyes down, holding a warm dish, I didn't feel rage, I felt possibility. We didn't hug, not yet, but we sat at the table. 3 plates, 3 forks. Quiet talk about nothing heavy. Words hung in the air, careful, kind, testing. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't painful. It was hopeful. Because words have weight, but so does grace. And sometimes after the storm passes, the table is big enough for everyone willing to sit down again.
The doorbell rang at exactly 6:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I knew the time because I'd been watching the clock like a teenager waiting for a first date. Nervous, hopeful, a little sick to my stomach. David had texted earlier. She's here, just for pie. No pressure. If it's too much, say the word and I'll walk her out. I didn't say the word. I opened the door. Jessica stood on the porch in a simple navy coat, snowflakes caught in her dark hair like tiny stars. She held a foil-covered dish in both hands, her famous pecan pie, the one she'd always brought to family gatherings before everything shattered. Her eyes were red-rimmed, makeup light, like she'd cried on the drive over and tried to fix it in the rearview mirror. "Hi," she said, barely above a whisper. David hovered behind her on the steps, hands in pockets, watching us both like we were fragile glass. I stepped back. "Come in, it's cold."
She hesitated, then crossed the threshold slowly, like she was entering a room full of memories that might bite. The smell of cinnamon and vanilla from our baking hit her first. Her eyes flicked to the kitchen counter. 3 pies already cooling, apple, pumpkin, and 1 pecan I'd made myself, almost like a quiet challenge. David closed the door behind them. Soft click. We moved to the dining table. No grand setup, just the everyday cloth, 3 plates, forks, coffee mugs already steaming. I pulled out a chair for her. She sat like she didn't quite trust the furniture to hold her. Silence settled first. Thick, careful, the kind that carries years. David broke it. Mom made extra whipped cream, the real stuff, none of that canned junk. A tiny, shaky laugh from Jessica. You always hated the canned kind. I nodded. Still do. I cut slices, 1 for each of us. The knife went through the crust with a soft crack. Steam rose. Pecan filling glistened dark and sweet. Jessica stared at her plate for a long moment before picking up her fork. When she took the first bite, her eyes closed. A single tear slipped down her cheek and landed on the tablecloth. She didn't wipe it away. "This tastes like home," she whispered. "I haven't had a good Christmas in years." David reached over, squeezed her hand once, gentle, uncertain. She didn't pull away. I watched them. Watched the way her shoulders relaxed just a fraction, watched my son look at her with something softer than anger, something like cautious hope. I took a slow breath. "Jessica?" She looked up fast, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "I read your card, every word, multiple times." Her lip trembled. "I meant every one." "I know." Another beat of quiet. "I don't know if we can ever be what we were," I continued, voice steady but soft. Too much was said, too much was broken, but sitting here tonight, eating pie, listening, it doesn't feel impossible. Jessica set her fork down, hands shaking. "I don't want impossible, I just want a chance to show up, to listen more than I talk, to earn back even a tiny piece of trust. Not for me, for David, for whatever family might still be possible." David's eyes were shining now. He looked at me, pleading but not pushing. I felt it all rush back in waves. The Thanksgiving silence, the hurt that had lived in my chest for so long, the quiet strength it took to walk away, the even harder strength it took to open the door tonight. And underneath it, the love that had never fully died, stubborn, patient, waiting. I reached across the table, not to hug, not yet, just to cover her hand with mine for a second, warm skin against warm skin. I said, "1 pie at a time." She let out a small, watery laugh sob. "1 pie at a time." David exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. We finished our slices slowly, talked about small things, the neighbors' new lights that blinked too fast, how the snow was supposed to stick overnight, David's terrible attempt at making gingerbread cookies last week. No big declarations, no promises carved in stone, just 3 people at a table, forks clinking softly, pie disappearing bite by bite. When Jessica stood to leave, coat back on, she paused at the door. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight, for not closing the door." I nodded. "Drive safe." David walked her out. I watched from the window as they stood on the porch for a moment, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Not fixed, not perfect, but together. He came back inside alone, closed the door, looked at me. "Mom, thank you." I pulled him into a hug, tight, long, the way I used to when he was small and the world felt too big. "Go home to her," I whispered, "and tell her next Christmas, maybe bring 2 pies. He laughed against my shoulder, wet, relieved. When he left, I stood in the quiet kitchen, looked at the empty plates, the crumbs, the half-full coffee pot. The house felt warmer than it had in years, not because everything was mended, but because we'd all chosen to try, to show up, to taste the sweetness again. Words have weight. Apologies have weight, but grace has the power to lift every single one. And sometimes, on a snowy Christmas Eve, 3 people at a table discover that the table is still big enough if everyone is willing to pull up a chair.
The snow kept falling outside, soft and steady, blanketing the street in white hush. Inside my house, the Christmas lights glowed warm against the windows, turning the living room into a small, safe world. Jessica didn't leave right away after the pie. She lingered by the mantel, fingers brushing the edge of the card she'd sent months earlier, now framed between 2 old family photos. David stood near the doorway, arms crossed loose, watching us both with that careful hope he'd learned to carry. I poured her another half cup of coffee, black, the way she used to take it before everything changed. She accepted it with a small nod, cradling the mug like it was something precious. "I kept every recipe you ever gave me," she said quietly, eyes on the steam rising. "The apple pie spice blend, the way you fold the crust so it doesn't crack, even the little note you wrote once, 'Don't rush the cooling. Good things need time.' I taped it inside my recipe box." I felt a tug behind my ribs, surprise, then something softer. "You still have that box?" She smiled, small and sad. "It's the only thing I took when I moved out. Everything else felt borrowed. That box felt like mine, like yours." David shifted his weight. "She makes your pecan pie every holiday now, even when it's just her in takeout containers. She says it reminds her to slow down." Jessica's cheeks flushed. "It's silly, I know, but it's the closest thing I had to saying sorry without actually saying it." I looked at her, really looked. The sharp edges she used to carry were gone. In their place, lines around her eyes from too many sleepless nights, a quietness that hadn't been there before. Regret had carved her differently, not broken her, reshaped her. I set my mug down. "Sit," I said. She did, right back at the table, like she was afraid to assume anything more. I pulled out the chair across from her, sat, folded my hands. "Tell me the truth," I said. Not harsh, just clear. Not the polished version, the real one. "Why did you say it that day? Why worthless?" Her breath caught. She stared at her coffee like it held the answer. "Because I was terrified. Terrified that if I admitted how much you helped me, if I said out loud that half my career was built on doors you opened, I'd feel small, like I wasn't good enough on my own. And I hated feeling small, so I made you small instead. I cut you down so I could stand taller. It was cruel, cowardly, and I've hated myself for it every single day since." Tears welled again, but she didn't hide them this time. "I lost my job. I lost my marriage. I lost the version of myself I thought was untouchable. But the worst part, I lost you before I even realized what I had." David wiped his face with his sleeve. Quiet sniff. I reached across the cable again. This time, I didn't just touch her hand. I held it, firm, steady. "You didn't lose me forever," I said. "You just misplaced me for a while." She let out a shaky laugh through tears. "I'm really good at misplacing things." We sat like that, hands linked, silence comfortable now instead of heavy. After a while, David spoke up, voice thick. "Next year, maybe we do the full thing, all of us, here, or at our place. Turkey, pies, the whole messy holiday." Jessica looked at me, hope flickering, fragile as new ice. I thought about it, pictured the table fuller, laughter louder, old hurts mentioned only in passing, like scars we'd learned to live with. "I think," I said slowly, "we start with New Year's. Small, just coffee and resolutions. See how it feels." Her face lit up, small, genuine, like sunrise after a long night. "New Year's," she repeated. "I'll bring the coffee. And no drama, promise." David grinned through wet eyes. "I'll bring the resolutions. Mine's gonna be talk more, shut up less." I laughed, real, from the belly. The sound surprised all 3 of us. We talked longer, about nothing big at first, then about everything. Her new freelance clients, small but steady, David's promotion, quiet pride in his voice, my latest board meeting where I'd pushed for better family leave policies. They both listened like it mattered.
When they finally stood to leave, snow piling thicker outside, Jessica paused at the door. "Can I hug you?" she asked, voice tiny. I opened my arms. She stepped in, hesitant at first, then all the way. Warm, shaking a little, smelling faintly of vanilla and snow. "Thank you," she whispered against my shoulder, "for still having arms open." I held her a second longer. "They've always been open. You just had to walk through the door." David joined. Group hug, awkward and perfect. The three of us standing in the entryway like we'd rediscovered gravity. When they left, porch light catching snowflakes around them, I watched until their taillights disappeared. Then I closed the door, leaned against it, smiled into the quiet. The house wasn't silent anymore. It was full of possibility, of second chances, of the slow, stubborn work of love coming back. Because sometimes the deepest cuts heal with the simplest things. A shared slice of pie, an honest sorry, a door left cracked just wide enough for grace to slip through. And when it does, the table grows, the heart expands, and what was broken doesn't disappear. It becomes part of a stronger story, one we're finally ready to keep telling.
The years that followed weren't perfect. Life never is. There were still awkward silences at first family gatherings. Jessica sometimes spoke too quickly, overcompensating with compliments or offers to help in the kitchen. David still caught himself glancing at me during tense moments, checking if the old hurt had resurfaced. And I still felt a small echo in my chest when certain words landed wrong, a reminder that scars don't vanish, they just learn to live quieter. But we kept showing up. New Year's became our quiet tradition. Coffee at my place, no big resolutions shouted to the room, just small promises whispered over steaming mugs. I'll call more. I'll listen harder. I'll try not to assume. Simple, honest, enough. Birthdays came with cards, not extravagant, but handwritten. Holidays grew fuller, extra chairs pulled from the garage, one more pie in the oven, laughter that started hesitant and ended easy. We didn't pretend the past hadn't happened. We named it sometimes, gently, over dessert, then let it rest again. One Easter Sunday, 3 years after that first shared Christmas pie, Jessica arrived early. She carried a small box wrapped in plain brown paper tied with twine. No bow, no flourish. "For you," she said, placing it in my hands like it weighed everything. Inside was a simple wooden recipe stand, hand-carved, the kind you prop open on the counter, etched along the bottom edge in careful, tiny letters. "To Margaret, the woman who taught me recipes aren't just ingredients. They're time, patience, second chances. Thank you for still letting me taste them." I ran my thumb over the words, felt the grain of the wood, felt my throat tighten in the best way. Jessica watched me, eyes shining but steady. "I made it myself," she said. "Took woodworking classes, messed up 3 times before I got it right. Figured if I can learn to carve something solid again, maybe I can keep building too." I pulled her into a hug, full, no hesitation. She hugged back like she'd been waiting years for permission. David walked in then, arms full of groceries for brunch. He stopped in the doorway, saw us, and just smiled. The kind of smile that says more than words ever could. That day, we cooked together. All 3 of us. Jessica chopped onions without flinching when they stung. David burned the first batch of rolls, and we all laughed until our sides hurt. I stirred gravy and watched them, my son and the woman who once called me worthless, move around my kitchen like they belonged there. Because they did. Not because everything was erased, but because we'd all chosen to rewrite the ending. Life moved on. Grandchildren arrived eventually, 2 little ones with David's eyes and Jessica's stubborn chin. They called me Nana M and begged for stories about the old days, never knowing how much weight those stories once carried. We told the gentle versions, the ones about love winning slowly. And every Thanksgiving, without fail, we set an extra place at the table. Not for ghosts, not for guilt, just in case someone needed reminding. The table is always big enough when hearts decide to make room. So, if you're carrying words that were thrown at you like stones, if someone once made you feel small, invisible, worthless, know this: you are not those words. You are the quiet strength that walks away when it must. the grace that opens the door when it can, the love that waits, patient, stubborn, fierce, until healing finds its way home. Words have weight, but love has wings, and sometimes, after the longest storm, it carries everyone back to the table. Thank you for staying with me through the story, from the hurt to the hope, from the silence to the second helpings of pie. A special thank you to YouTube and the entire YouTube team for giving storytellers like me a place to share hearts, lessons, and second chances with all of you. If this touched something in you, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and maybe subscribe for more stories that remind us we're never too broken to begin again. With all my gratitude and a full heart. Until the next story, take care of each other.